Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Aarti Nirmal from Banaras Hindu University and today we are going to talk on module Representation of Women in TV Serials, Web, Advertisements and Fashion Magazines under the paper Women, Media and Films. This module is designed to help you develop a holistic understanding of women's representation in TV serials, websites, advertising, and fashion magazines. After going through it, you will be able to state different facets of representation of women in TV serials or soaps, describe in detail as to how women are represented in web, explain various aspects of women's representation in advertising, and ascertain the way fashion magazines represent fair sex and issues related to them. In the previous module, we learned about different theories of representation and stereotypes. In this chapter, we will take a sneak peek into various aspects of women's representation in TV serials, web, advertisements, and fashion magazines. First, we will deal with representation of women in TV serials with a specific reference to Indian context. Subsequently, we will delve into the world of women's representation in web and advertisements before signing off with a discussion on women's representation in fashion magazines. In the next module, we will read about representation of minorities in media with a special emphasis on representation of minority women. Let us talk about the representation of women in TV serials. TV serials or soap operas or simply soaps are to women what sports and music channels are to youngsters. Especially for those women who do household chores, soaps are the main source of entertainment. It is therefore not a surprise that the very genre of soaps is women-centric. However, despite their women-centric nature, TV serials are often accused of reinforcing stereotypes and not depicting women in a realistic manner. In this part, we will explore some of the aspects related to women's representation in Indian serials. Before we proceed, I would like to share an interesting fact with you that soap operas are called soaps because they originated from the 1950s radio dramas in the US that were broadcast during the day when women would be home doing household works. These radio dramas were sponsored by soap manufacturing companies such as Procter & Gamble, Colgate-Palmolive, and Lever Brothers Stan, therefore came to be referred as soaps. Coming back to TV serials in India, we have had a knack for stereotyping women and people belonging to different religions and states. A typical woman in Indian serial wears an expensive sari, sports heavy makeup, and more often than not is seen as a housewife with a little say in the running of the family except cooking, celebrating festivals, and plotting. There have been numerous serials such as Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi, Kum Kum, Kasauti Zindagi Ke, Kahani Ghar Ghar Ki, Mere Angne Mein, etc., which have reinforced the existing stereotypes. There have been only a few serials where one can see any realistic portrayal of women. Women in India are working in every field including IT, medical, police service and administrative services, but it is rare to come across a female engineer or a female government officer in serials. Even when working women find a space on the screen, their depiction remains stereotypical. In Diya or Bati, the leading lady happens to be an Indian police service officer, but her dressing and her treatment at home are no different from that of Tulsi Virani of Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi or Parvati Agarwal of Kahani Ghar Ghar Ki. A working woman is either shown as a superwoman or an ultra-modern girl without much morality. Thus, there is no middle ground. Here you can see a clip from the popular TV serial Kum Kum, where Juhi Parmar is playing with aplomb and smash, and it was a hit. The concept of good and bad is black and white in most of the TV serials of India. The good women are housewives doing every single chore in the house, not saying anything even if they are beaten or abused, taking everything in their stride with aplomb and putting everybody else's happiness above theirs. In short, they don't have a personal life and ambition. On the other hand, almost every serial has a vamp who is argumentative, has loose morals, and is always shown scheming and plotting the downfall of the leading lady. The distinction between the good and the evil is also shown by the way a woman dresses in serials. While a kind-hearted and everyone's favorite bahu like Gopi of Sathya always sports a sari or a full-sleeved salwar kameez, a scheming vamp like Ragini of Suhani Se Ek Ladki appears in western outfits like sleeveless suits and jeans. Even the way a woman representing the good wears sari differs from the way a woman representing grey shade does. While those of the traditional women, dubbed symbol of virtues, sport saris with Sidha Pallu style, for example, Archana in Pavitra Rishta and Lali in Agle Jannam Mohe Bitya Hi Kijo, those representing the evil, as in Vishakha in Choti Bahu, always appear wearing saris with Ulta Pallu style. Did you know that Hum Log, which was aired on Doordarshan in 1984, happened to be India's first soap opera? It had 154 episodes. It was directed by P. Kumar Vasudev and written by Manohar Shyam Joshi. Coming back again to TV serials, we see that however it is not all that gloom and doom, were serials which attempted to look beyond the stereotypes besides raising social issues affecting women. Swabhiman was one of the earliest serials on Doordarshan in which all the characters were rich and suave, including the women. Most of the female characters wore shorts, drank, smoked, and got pregnant before marriage. Udan is another serial which has taken an unconventional route and deals with aspirations of a young girl and how she goes on to join the Indian Police Service. Unlike Diya or Bati, it shows the protagonist as brave, independent, and intelligent. In the recent time, a number of TV serials have tried to raise awareness about sensitive issues like child marriage in Balika Vadhu, autism in Aapki Antara, widow's condition in Ishq Ka Rang Safed, honor killing in Armano Ka Balidan, etc. However, such serials are very few and far between. Some serials start off well but later lose track and start focusing on the same family drama. I would share another interesting fact with you here. A mention has to be made specifically of Pakistani serials here, which are being beamed on Zee Zindagi channel these days. Unlike Indian soaps, these serials do not seem to be resorting to melodrama and have strong women characters who are shown breaking all kinds of stereotypes. Some of these serials are like Humsafar, Zindagi Gulzar Hai, Mere Katil Mere Dildar, etc. are being lapped up by Indian viewers too and have made Pakistani actors like Fawad Khan, Mahira Khan and Samina Pirzada a household name in the country. Now the question is, what kind of message these TV serials are sending to the younger generations? In the words of film journalist Madhulika Singh of Hindustan Times, they have reduced the status of women to a housewife who has nothing more to do than cook, keep quiet, deck up, and sob. In reality, even housewives or homemakers also have nothing in common with them. A lot of women who chose to stay at home for any reason have a life and hobbies. They are not bimbates, they have a mind of their own. In these serials, men are shown to be working outside and not even raising a finger at home. It reinforces the stigma attached to a man doing household work. Running a family is the responsibility of both man and woman, but no serial tends to focus on it. Thus, in conclusion, we can say that since TV serials have a huge reach in India, they should work towards breaking stereotypes and not reinforcing them. Women in India are already fighting a difficult battle towards equality, and their portrayal in TV serials ought to help them win it. Let us talk about representation of women in web. From the melodramatic world of soaps, let us switch to the virtual realm of web and find out as to how women are represented here. Since the internet or web is a more recent media phenomenon which involves a two-way communication model, it should have been more democratic in its portrayal of women, or so it would seem. Democratic in the sense that the women are no more passive consumers of media and would have a say in the way the online media treats them. That would mean that the women on internet are not the silent suffering majority. Being a more inclusive medium, women should have had more avenues to express their point of view. Moreover, since the internet caters to a more educated audience, the portrayal of women too should have witnessed a paradigm shift, but shockingly, that is not the case. While there are more women related material and more awareness about feminism on the internet, careful scrutiny reveals that treatment of women in the virtual world is a sad reflection of what happens in the real world. You all might be coming across several women specific websites on several issues like women empowerment, health, shopping, etc. But the main question arises as to why do we need websites specific to women? According to womensagenda.com, one reason is because women still aren't represented equally in or by the mainstream media. If newspapers and general news sites were run by, edited, and produced by more women, this might have been different. If female columnists and female bylines were as prolific as men's, this might not be the case. If women were quoted more proportionally in stories more often, this might be different. Online harassment is another issue on internet, especially for women. The way men and women are treated online is quite different. Generally, men are questioned about their competency and skills, whereas attacks on women are mostly of sexual nature. They range from making comments on her appearance to even molestation threats, and they are widespread. On and off in these days, the different social networking websites are becoming the platforms for different mishaps for girls. The case of Anita Sarkeesian and Caroline Criado Perez are only two high-profile examples of the millions of aggressions women suffer online every day. These cases undermine the dignity of women, reduce them to sexualized bodies, and delegitimize their voices as citizens. The result is detaching women from online discussions and suppressing their opinions or contributions to society to be more specific, from bold activism actions to simple tasks as creating YouTube videos about fashion. Amanda Spencer, in her path-breaking analysis titled Portrayal of Women in Online News Media Advertising, which came in 2008, suggests that online news media advertisements utilize stereotypes and promote an unhealthy body image and concept of beauty among women. The power and influence these advertisements possess is worth researching. There is another view by Langrehe that mass media have become the vital little brick schoolhouse and advertisements the preferred lesson plan. The unique aspect of this analysis is that there is very little research that exists on online advertising, especially online news, media, and women. The results are even more important to understand because it directly contributes to the knowledge of online advertising, an area that is currently in want of literature. From this analysis, it is clear that advertising in mass media preys on an emotional connection to the viewers through the use of emotions such as sexuality, vulnerability, insecurity, and beauty to draw loyal customers. Content analysis and statistical evidence paint an even bleaker picture. According to the Media and Gender Monitor, only 24% of news stories were reported about women globally in 2011. Women were the focus of only 19% of news stories in politics and government in 2010. Of the 84 news websites monitored by the Global Media Monitoring Project, 23% of newsmakers were represented by women in 2010. NPR reported in 2010 that only 26% of its news sources were women. This shows that men are not only in charge of the government and news in all aspects of society, but they also dominate the voices and news exposed to the broader world. The statement that resonates most is made by Mary Wilson, founding president of the White House Project, an organization that seeks to get more women into elected office, who says, "You can't be what you can't see." There is an interesting fact about the website www.smartbahu.com. As the name suggests, the site of a Smart Bahu is dedicated to the smart and dynamic women of today. Log on to Smart Bahu to read complete stories on the top happenings in India and around the world. Browse the sections on business, automobiles, culture, fashion, education, lifestyle, women, and other important topics. There are other many useful websites on women in India like womeninfoline.com, smartbahu.com as I mentioned, women.com, and many others. Helping women to get online, www.hwgo.com is another website which contains different articles on women on various topics like childcare tips, cooking recipes, financial tips, and household tips in India. When you go to this website, which is made according to Indian market, you would feel that women are made for those four jobs only. The content is stereotyped. It is just a single website on these issues. There are infinite number of websites also which portray women as homely figure only. Generally, women are represented as someone who can't be independent, and we need to see their pathetic situation, or they are represented in the most glamorous manner. Here we have a screenshot from the Facebook Friends icon. You can see the change which has taken place over the period of time. In the first figure, the image of man is overshadowing the woman, whereas in the next figure, next segment, we see that this is a reverse situation where woman is overshadowing the image of man. Likewise, there is another set of a screenshot where we can see the icon for Facebook groups where at the center in the first visual is a male figure, whereas in the updated one we have a female image. Thus, it can be said that the internet or web is a powerful instrument of change, and a change can only occur once we are able to see the type of force this tool has cast on society. It is up to us to use the force of internet to influence positive changes and correct the representation of women. Now, if we talk about the representation of women in advertising, after learning about various facets of women's representation in TV serials and web, let us now move ahead to examine the same in the world of advertising. As a tool to sell products and services, advertising has existed for ages. However, advertising as we know today is an outcome of the modern industrialized world characterized by mass production, transport facilities to convey goods, and most importantly, diverse media to advertise the products to the mass market. Today, as an all-pervasive element of the contemporary culture in a globalized and marketized world, advertising has evolved as an industry in itself that exercises immense influence on the lives of people. It would not be an exaggeration to say that successful national economies of industrialized countries now depend a lot on advertising. The foundations of the mass media itself depend on advertising. The dynamic changes that advertising has undergone over the years since its humble beginnings are largely due to the way mass media have evolved. Along with the changes in forms, advertising has also witnessed changes in the content. Without going into a detailed account of the historical development of advertising, we would look upon the ways if it facilitates the formation of cultural perceptions and values, particularly by its use and representation of women. From the morning newspaper and radios to the hoardings on the roads, from the magazines to the television, from bus and railway stations to shopping malls, advertising is around us everywhere. And now, embedded in the web pages and smartphone apps, advertising is with us around the clock. Due to its repetitive, all pervasive visual nature, the kind of imagery of men and women projected in advertising becomes culturally significant. Advertisements we come across every day are full of statements about the ideals of femininity, about what it means to be a woman. We have another interesting thing here is a clip from the Lux soap featured film print ad by Leela Chitnis as the first Lux model in 1941. And it would be interesting to share that Lux, an international venture of Lever Brothers, featured Hollywood stars in most parts of the world. Lux entered India in 1929, and while its early advertisements would feature Hollywood actresses, they would eventually be replaced almost completely by local stars. Marked by its use of the portraiture of known faces, Lux can be seen as one of the earliest forms of celebrity endorsements. Most of the advertisements featuring women tend to establish physical beauty or looks as the most important aspect of a woman's existence through standardized images of ideal beauty. Young female models in advertisements are free from any imperfections that include wrinkles, scars, blemishes, facial and body hair. Computer retouching with the use of software like Photoshop has taken the removal of these imperfections to a whole new level by providing the ability to tone down or enhance muscles and curves in the digital photographs of these models. Here is a visual which you can see where you see a marked difference in portrayal of a man and a woman in the advertisement of a product of same category, that is soap, same brand, Synthol, and by the same company, that is Godrej. There is another visual where you can see it is of Dalda Vanaspati, where the mother has been shown to be taking care of the child, and the caption also says, "Mothers who care use Dalda." The surge of economic growth and the resulting rise in levels of consumption after India started liberalizing its economy in 1991 led to the expansion of mass market in the form of rising middle class. These economic changes had profound social and cultural consequences that included proliferation of nuclear families and increased number of women in workplace. The urban Indian woman rose in importance as target consumer as well as decision maker in the act of purchasing. Here I would like to share a brief note regarding when a girl danced in a cricket field. So you can see how the change has taken place over the period of time. In the 1990s, advertising agency Ogilvy and Mather India, working for Cadbury's, came up with Real Taste of Life campaign, one of the most memorable ad campaigns in the history of Indian advertising. In one of the several ads under the campaign, a young girl dashes into the cricket field from among the viewers and dances unabashedly to celebrate the victory of her favored team. The ads not only revived Cadbury's from stagnancy but went on to become iconic images in the collective memories of the people. Speaking about the impact of the ad, its creator Piyush Pandey said at Berlin School of Creative Leadership in 2009, when all the researchers said that in smaller towns of India a girl can't dance in a cricket field, that is not our culture. Well, this changed the culture. The culture was there. We were not helping them bring the culture out. The campaign ran for 8 years and was voted the campaign of the century in India because it really made a huge impact on the cultural values of people. It said, I don't have to be confined. I can actually do the kind of things that I feel like doing. Not surprisingly, the years after the economic liberalization witnessed increased number of advertisements targeted to women. The image of the women represented in the ads also underwent a makeover. In the pre-liberalization era, women featured in advertisements for beauty products had long hair, worn braided or in a bun. Some of the frequently appearing roles played by women in Indian advertising include that of a picture-perfect housewife who is eager to please everyone and whose world revolves around her family. Beauty products featuring women have continued to feature female models with flawless fair skin, with the ads propagating that skin type as the hallmark of good looks and the means for all accomplishments, both personal and professional. In this product category, Indian advertising have been found to be highly influenced by its American counterpart. Overall, studies indicate that there has been a change in the way females are portrayed in advertisements, though the change is very slight. The portrayals have become less stereotypical over the decades, with more advertisements showing women as breadwinners, professionally successful, having equal stake in decision making, independent from family concerns, and other progressive representations. At the same time, there has also been an increase in advertisements in which women are depicted as objects of sex. In due course, advertising has started trying to co-opt ideologies of feminism, but much of this effort is characterized by what media literacy activist Z. Kilbone, in her pioneering and influential documentary film killing us softly advertising's image of women called the trivialization of freedom with very masculine definition of power. Of late, there have been some genuine progressive campaigns that have tried to break this stereotype. Jewelry brand Tanishq's 2013 A Wedding to Remember campaign was one such campaign that used the premise of remarriage of a young woman who has a child from a previous marriage. Let us talk about representation of women in fashion magazines. So far, we have taken a sneak peek into the representation of women in TV serials, web, and advertisements. In the last part of this module, we will now dissect women's representation through the prism of fashion magazines. When one considers the strands of human civilization, one would be able to logically delineate various efforts of men to record their expression of ideas, thoughts, and feelings. The discovery of printing press by Gutenberg and subsequent deepening of industrial revolution helped human race to diversify this endeavor of expression. Newspapers first and various types of magazines later followed the trends. Fashion magazine is one such effort centered on women. This happened in the West, particularly in the capitalist economy. Fashion magazine is for the women, as in most cases by the women. Ivana Bartoskova, in her thesis titled A Linguistic and Feminist Analysis of Style magazine, writes, women's magazines have been part of a woman's world since the 18th century. At that time, women started to play an important part in literature and in society, and this stimulated the publishing of women's magazines. Spectator, one of the most significant magazines of its age, realized the new trend and intently started to attract female readership too. As Edison, the founder, said, there are none to whom this paper will be more useful than to the female world. I have often thought there has not been sufficient pains taken in finding out proper employments and diversions for the fair ones. Although the attraction was realized in a strong paternalistic view and magazines wrote mainly about women's manners and morality, women did not mind it at all. On the contrary, they were very grateful for any attention they received. Women of that time were disregarded and viewed just as an object. Therefore, every interest in them was welcomed. It is mentioned by Pratt in the work which came in 2001. Ivana Bartoskova writes about the efforts of the beginning of the 18th century. We may find the similar efforts taking place in 1892 when Arthur Turner founded Vogue in the New York City. The idea was to create a new aristocracy like that of Europe among the women in the United States of America, as it didn't have such a component in the society. Did you know that a magazine for women, Female Tatler, was started by Mrs. Krakenthorpe in 1709? But it could continue for a little while, not even 1 year, as not many of the target women were literate. Here we have the cover page of the Vogue magazine, and you can see fashion magazines are not for all women in a society. They are not focused on emancipation. They do not even talk about the serious issues like empowerment, sexual abuse, economic exploitation, and domestic violence. The target women belong to the upper middle class and the rich group. They mainly focus on beauty, health, shape of figure, various therapies including yoga, and various tips on use of cosmetics. The fashion magazines also focus on dating and sex to a large extent. This is again the cover page of the Cosmopolitan magazine, and you can see how it is trying to cater a particular kind of interest, particular kind of taste. In a way, fashion magazines have a negative connotation as they mostly concentrate on the lighter aspects of a woman's life. One can also see that these magazines are subscribed to and read by women belonging to the age of 30 to 40 years. In a way, the focus of these magazines is to inspire the women to make themselves a sex object. The face and the figures of the models who are portrayed in these magazines have airbrush makeup. The positive aspect of these magazines can be imagined as an effort to create a community of women with certain common values and attributes. Whether beauty, airbrush makeup, slim figures are positive values or not are debatable. In a study conducted by Shannon Case, Leon Jordat, Zuan Sun, Langford Wiggins, titled Representation of Female Beauty, a content analysis of fashion magazine advertisements and street style fashion blogs, Georgetown University, USA. It was stated that 53.8% of the content was text or editorial content, whereas 46.2% was advertisements. In the same article, it was found that the editorial content mentioned many brands that the editions had no advertisement from. These brands amount to about 50% of all the advertised brands. So it can be said that about 70% of the content had either direct or indirect advertisements of brands in fashion magazines. Therefore, the fashion magazines are the engines of communication of brands to influence the purchase of goods and services from the female readers. The fashion magazines create a community of women who represent certain values which can be inculcated when certain attributes are acquired or practiced by the members of the community. Women are not a monolithic group in which members have the same values and attributes. The feminism that is found in fashion magazines is artificially constructed. The visual language, the signs, and the symbols that are used in fashion magazines make the women having an ideology devoid of any depth and emancipator direction. It promotes a culture that has no roots. You can see that we have another visual which shows a proportionate, a graphic representation. It is a kind of analysis to show that almost half of the magazines are composed of sexually charged images and articles. The fashion magazines are also not concerned about the unity of women as such, irrespective of color, creed, and race. In a study conducted on the cover page appearances in print media fashion magazines in 2014, it was found out that the tilt towards Caucasian or white skin was given prominence. A total of 611 cover pages from 44 major fashion magazines were studied. 576 times it was the white model who were depicted and only 119 times the colored ones. So even women are not above the racism. The more one talks about the change, the more it remains the same. In India, there are many fashion magazines. The prominent among them are Savvy, Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, New Woman, Verve, Cosmopolitan, Marie Claire, Women's Era, Femina, and so on. It is expected that the fashion magazines in India would not follow the treaded path of the Western fashion magazines. Again, if one goes through the content and advertisement, one could not find any difference between the two. Many popular fashion magazines of the West have Indian versions. The difference is that these versions use Indian models more and Western models less, particularly on the cover page. One may forget that after all, the fashion magazines, though of women, it need not be women issue centric, it is fashion centric. Fashion is important, not women. Did you know that there are street style blogs that are found in the web? There are 75,000 new blogs and 1.2 million posts published every day in street style blogs. So students, let us now summarize what we have learned in this module. In this module, we explored various aspects of women's representation in TV serials, web, advertisements, and fashion magazines. TV serials or soaps have a massive fan following among women of India. But when it comes to the fair sexes representation, these serials seem to be reinforcing various stereotypes attached to females. In most of these serials, a good woman happens to be a housewife rooted in traditional values, while an evil woman is always devoid of values and is shown having loose morals. There are some serials like Udan, Ishq Ka Rang Safed, Balika Vadhu, etc., which have tried to break these stereotypes and raise awareness about social issues, but their number is very few. The case of the world of internet is no different either. While there is no dearth of matter related to women-centric issues and feminism, a careful scrutiny reveals that the treatment of women in the virtual world is a sad reflection of what happens to them in the real world. Apart from getting less representation, women have to also face issues like online harassment on the web. In advertising, women's representation has kept changing over the years. While in early days, women were mostly depicted as good housewives, eager to please everyone, with time, the portrayals became less stereotypical, with more advertisements showing women as breadwinners, professionally successful, and having equal say in decision making. However, on the flip side, there has been an increase in ads depicting females as an object of sexual gratification. Talking about representation of women in fashion magazines, we see that it has two sides. On the flip side, these magazines have a negative connotation as they mostly concentrate on the lighter aspects of a woman's life, besides inspiring them to make themselves a sex object. However, on the brighter note, they have contributed in creating a community of women with certain common values and attributes. Thank you.